Hey Bruce, how are you? Can you hear me?
Good, you're a genius, I guess.
I guess. So sorry for holding you up from all the construction at Rally Point. I was there last night and saw that you guys are redoing the bar area. So what's the plan with that?
16 years was long enough to have that space occupied with our original design, and building owner Brett Wilson wanted to upscale the look and the feel and add a little more restaurant seating to keep an eye on the courts. So we're doing a full remodel of the bar area and adding, like I said, a bar counter and seats overlooking courts 3, 4, and 5, and then a few more spaces where there have never been seats. So we're hoping to expand our capacity a little bit.
Right on. And so is that going to be open during the off hours, or is that only going to be open during hours of operation with volleyball stuff going on?
Hoping to maximize the space. So if we can find some market for the business park or after hours, we'll go for it.
Right on. So for people who are online right now, Bruce Edwards is the founder of Rally Point. And how long have you guys been open for now?
I think it's 16 and a half years, coming up to wrapping up year 17 in January.
Right on. And it's one of the best facilities in the Calgary area. Bruce has been inducted into the Hall of Fame with Volleyball Alberta just this past year. Runs Canada West Volleyball Club out of Rally Point. Played national team, played pro. God, the list goes on. Tell us about yourself, Bruce.
I started like any other kid, hopefully in youth volleyball, who dreams of being on the national team and making a living playing professional volleyball. And I was able to, through luck and good coaching, follow the path I wanted with 4 years at U of C and then 8 years with the national team. And people aren't getting rich playing for the national team, as the athletes out there, high-level athletes, know today. So to offset the small income that you're making on the national team, you would head over for 9 months in the winters to Europe. So I managed to play 6 years over in Europe, 2 years in Paris, 2 years in the south of France in Nice, and 2 years in Vienna. So I got pretty fortunate with the cities I was able to play in, and quite successful team. So I had a great run over there, but it was time to start a lifestyle back here, meaning get a job. My kids were becoming school age, so we moved back and started Rally Point.
Right on, right on. So I'm hoping that this interview can be, we just started that Volleyball Coaches of Canada Facebook page. We're live right now on that Facebook page. We've sent out emails to all the volleyball associations from coast to coast, hoping that this is a platform where coaches can come together, discuss ideas, and grow the game, obviously. And I know the Volleyball Coaches and Trainers page is more US based, with John Kessel kind of at the helm of that one. So hopefully, this page can pick up. These interviews can be helpful for coaches, and we got some tough questions for you today.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Right on. So let's start. As a club director, I get a lot of questions from parents about either playing up or playing down based on that age category, the September to December birthdays. What is your view on this based on your experience as a club director with Canada West, as a player and a coach?
I think it starts. That's exactly it. The belief I have stems from, as a player, when I was in grade 11, so officially a 17U, there weren't that many teams. So the age groups were 2-year age groups, old juvenile, which was 17 and 18. So you didn't have a choice. You just played with your group. So as a grade 11 starter on basically an 18U team that won a national championship, I thought I played a big part in it. And I was probably the smallest part of the 6 who were on the court. I just was too glossy-eyed to realize it. And the following year, I thought how easy this is going to be to repeat, because I already know how to get there. But when the tables turn and you now have to be a leader rather than the quote-unquote younger brother who's allowed to make mistakes because everyone just sees that he's a younger player helping us out and we have no one else to fill that spot, when your team relies on you and the results are based significantly on how you play, how you perform, and how you lead the others on the court, it's a totally different ball game. So when parents ask me, my daughter, my son are good enough to play up, what do you think? I say, well, every now and then it's fantastic for physical development, being challenged every day, being challenged by other players. But I also think every second year that athlete should learn how to be a leader. If they're that good, they will be able to lead a team and learn those social skills, those leadership skills, and learn how to be a stud on the court.
Right.
To carry the load, carry the offense, understand the pressure of your teammates looking at you. And when you have a bad game and the team loses, everybody knows you were the cause of it. Whereas when everyone also realizes you had the game of your life and carried the team, that's a great feeling as well. So I'm not a big fan of play up until grade 12. And then all of a sudden you're trying to learn how to be a leader in 1 year. I don't think it can happen that fast. And I also think the social aspect of it is important. My son, who's in grade 8, is a December birthday. He is playing in his birth year. So I guess people could say he is playing up because he's playing with people a grade ahead of him. But those are all his friends. Those are his friends he grew up playing hockey with and in the neighborhood with. So at some point he may need to choose a new age category and play in his grade level. Whereas right now it's all social for him. He's challenged. He's on par with the athletes right now. And that's what I want to see, that he's enjoying it. And I think socially he's where he should be.
Right. Now, do you feel that, with Volleyball Canada rules, they're, with Alberta related. So we have U13, Volleyball BC has a U12 age group. Do you think kids should be waiting to be at that U13 level? So let's say a U11 or U12 kid comes to a tryout or whatever to want to play. Should they be doing camps and clinics and just kind of playing school ball, or should we be trying to promote, U12 leagues like Volleyball BC is, in the States, U11, U10, that sort of thing? Where do you see volleyball going again at the younger levels?
Well, my club has never run a 13U team until this year. I didn't think there was a huge market for it. I thought the last time I looked at the Volleyball Alberta scheduling, there were 18 teams or whatever throughout the province, and I was quite surprised this year when I took over a 13U team mid-season that there were 52 teams in the province. So that shows me when you have 80-some teams at 14U, 50 at 13U, there has to be a market for 12Us. And I'm sure if we checked the birth years, many of those 13Us, there would be a number of 12U teams. I know Canuck ran a 12U team in the 13U category. Do I think there needs to be an individual 12U league? I'm not sure if the physical aspect of 13Us needs a separation between the 12Us. The game is played below the height of the net in general.
Yeah.
So I think to keep them involved there and let the growth happen, that if that, like all the other age groups that we've split, once we reached a capacity of not being able to host those tournaments in a given city, then we maybe split that out. But I think we're a couple years away from that.
Fair enough. And I know you're a humble guy, Bruce. So a shout out, because I know you won the Div 1 Tier 1 U13 Provincial Championships this year. So well done to you guys and your club on that great result. So
appreciate it. It was a pretty special group. I've never coached a group of 12 athletes that were as diligent and energetic in practice and relentless on defense. And at 13U, that's a big part of it. When you can take away the belief of the other team that any ball is going to land without an absolute effort, it's a pretty special group. So we'll see where they go from here.
Right on. So with the rule for September to December birth dates, do you feel that clubs or coaches of teams, one team type of clubs, do you think this rule can be abused where, let's say a bunch of U16 players show up and they choose 12 players that all have September to December birth dates and play U15? Does this help athlete development, or is this kind of one of those gray areas of the rule where people kind of abuse it in their way for the benefit of results?
Well, I expected that to happen originally. I don't think there is rampant abuse of it. I think some clubs chase the results. As I look at some of the grades on the athletes that are on certain teams. But I also think, I don't believe the parents go in blind to that aspect. I like to think more and more parents are educating themselves on the clubs, the rules. I may be wrong, but the clubs, the rules, and understanding your daughter's in grade 11, your son is in grade 11, but we would like you to play grade 10 essential U. If an athlete wants that and the family wants that, then I'm not one to criticize how the club is putting their team together. I think long range, athletes and families are getting smarter every year when they hear different horror stories of other athletes, and we're getting closer to athletes being able to pick based on what is best for them,
Right.
not promises by coaches and clubs.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the key point there is what athletes need to do, what's best for them. And their opinion should come number one. And I know that, you know, with the different variation of rules and stuff like that, there's a lot of promises out there. There's a lot of, you know, hype for every club or every team and stuff like that. And it's tough for athletes, especially, you know, young adults, even the younger age groups, to make decisions like that. So I think the rule's evolving, and I think, as you say, that you know, it's people are kind of figuring it out as we move forward, but it's tough for kids for sure.
The challenge is also they want to play with their friends.
Yeah.
And if their friend's family can be convinced, and it might be a good setup for an athlete to go to a certain club, and they bring 3 friends along, that it isn't the same benefit to those 3 friends, that's where the disappointment falls.
Right.
So if the education maintains the growth, I think the clubs who are under delivering on their promises will create a reputation. And when that reputation sinks in, it's going to be really hard to change that. So I'm just going to try keep going with the culture of Canada West and carry on from there.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. So, I mean, at the younger age groups, as we were speaking about, you know, you see lots of different variations in the game. For example, in BC at U12, they shorten the court lengthwise. At U13, you have triple ball. At U14, you have triple ball for the very first tournament. There are obviously positives to all these modifications. Do you believe that there are these modifications are beneficial? If not, what would you change if you had the power to change any of these things, adding or subtracting to those sort of variations?
If I was all powerful in Canada, I would likely try to make up one set of rules, because I'm sure there are benefits to shortening the court for U12. I witnessed the benefits of triple ball for 13U, which I never thought I would say. But the one practice we ran, I let them scrimmage for 25 minutes, and they had they only twice had 3 touches in a rally. Whereas with triple ball, in 25 minutes, you're probably getting 40 3-contact rallies. So the triple ball development for me is a huge one. And again, everyone thinks they're doing the best thing for the sport. And it's tough for anyone to say, well, that's not as good as what I'm doing for the sport, but it sure would be nice to find an overarching reasoning and ruling to get everybody on board on the same page. And I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I definitely think we're trying to swim upstream. You know, if it's not one thing, it's another. But, you know, again, the sport's evolving and, you know, growing, especially in the Alberta side of things. And I got to work with Volleyball BC this past at Provincials for them, and it's growing out there as well. So a lot of positives. So when kids jump back and forth from the school ball to club, there are a lot of rule changes, you know, as you said, you know, example, setting a ball on serve, not setting a ball on serve. Do you think that school and club should be more, you know, the same on rules? I know that, you know, again, I'm basing this on Alberta, you know, kind of schools kind of turned a look at clubs a bit differently as they used to, and kind of frown upon the club system. And I'm not speaking for all schools, but I know that there's that sort of persona out there. How can we work together, school and club, to make the sport better, to not, be so confrontational and with rules, etc.?
Well, I think at the junior high level, there aren't that many. Well, granted, my son is in the French Catholic system. There are not that many club kids playing school volleyball, so they don't know of the conflict of rules. So we're looking at it from a club point of view. Schools are just looking at it from a participation, make the game fair type of view. So I'm not sure the junior highs need to be that concerned, whereas my daughter's senior high team, 1 year we were allowed to set the serve, the next year we weren't, and the next year we were, because there are a lot more club players. I know the school systems are pretty slow to change.
Yeah.
But I think they'd be open to some ideas, because they're starting to see more and more athletes are the club athletes, and why. But they also like to be their own unique entity, to provide a school feel and have their unique aspects of their game. But it would be great to be able to put it all together. But again, in 16 years, I haven't seen enough people taking their egos out of the game. Everyone's got an agenda. I say, I'm sure I have an agenda that I don't realize, but I often say I lived my glory as a player. I don't need to live any more glory as a coach.
Yeah.
I'm sure people would disagree. I get heated, sure, like other coaches, but people are so caught up on results, and give me the best team possible, rather than who are we doing this for? We're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing it for the kids. For me, it's all about benefit to the kids.
We met in 2010, and definitely for me personally, I was that style of coach that would, kick in doors and ask questions later. 8 years later, I feel that my philosophy and my thought process on the sport itself, on how I coach, has changed drastically. And it's really important for me personally, hence why I do this page, to try to get as many kids involved. And that could be, having Div 1 teams that a lot of people are focused on. But, there's a place for kids to play Div 2, Div 3, even Div 4, and be able to experience, the camaraderie, the love of the game, and hopefully, they take that and go on to play, not everyone's going to go play university ball or anything like that, but, play recreation league and stuff like that. So, it's definitely interesting how my thought process has changed, and I know you have personally witnessed that over the past 8 years. So,
that's the thing. I was the top 1%, I would say, and I was taken care of very well.
Right.
The top 5%, everybody wants them. Everybody is going to tell them they need them, and they're going to be taken care of, and I don't need to worry about them.
Right.
I'm trying to grow the sport by taking care of the 0 to 95% that just want to play, and that's what you're doing a great job of as well. That let's not worry about chasing all the same athletes. Let's grow the game, which I think we're doing.
Totally. So, now when it comes, I think there's, again, back to that last question, I think there's a way of bridging the gap with school and club, and I don't know what the answer is, obviously, but I think it's something that, volleyball associations and school associations should, try to mend that gap and bridge it however they see fit. Regarding the volleyball itself, you play school ball, you have one ball. You play club at one age group, you have a different ball. Then you get older at U17, you have another ball. Then you go to nationals and you have another ball on top of that. Is this a good thing for the game? I know, there's obviously money figures that, put those sort of motives forward. But is this good for athletes? Is this not good for athletes? Is this something that, athletes should be diverse in all different types of volleyballs? Or what are your thoughts on that?
My first one is, I think it's insane that 14-year-old girls, 13-year-old girls use the same ball as 18-year-old men at nationals. That's for another day.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I think there is a financial component to it. I think there's a product component to it. I don't think it is necessarily hurting the athlete, because in different countries in Europe, you always use a different ball. So it's not going to damage their ability to learn the game. And I'm not worried about, oh, BC got to use the Nationals ball during their season at 14U, so they're going to have an advantage going into Nationals. I'm thinking that's not what we're worrying about. And I believe the motivation to use the International Mikasa at 17-18 was because our athletes weren't getting ready for the international level playing with an international gold light volleyball. So where that should happen, I'm not sure. I don't think the VQ 2000 in Alberta at 16U is a great ball for the men. I think they could probably soon move on to the heavier ball. The women probably as well. There's pretty high level 16U volleyball. But again, even within divisions, when you have 80 teams, there's some teams that are going to have no problem handling that heavier ball, but there's going to be Division 4 teams that are struggling overhand serving that are not going to be able to serve that heavier ball over. So where we make the splits, whether it's at age groups, divisions, who knows what that's going to look like.
Fair enough. I know that, I mean, they all have their own touch and feel and weight and all that stuff. So, I know that this is a very deep, this can go, we can go down the rabbit hole on this one, but we'll move on from that. So obviously, being a director is tough. There is so much people that don't see what we do behind the scenes. Now, what's your thought on the fair play rule? I think a lot of parents have this misconception about fair play equals even play, and it really doesn't. And then, to take it even deeper, again, using Alberta as our base here, U15, there's, this fair play rule, and then you go to nationals and there's no fair play rule. And for, from a parent point of view, this could be a big eye opener, regarding the change, the change in rules. What's your take on this?
Well, I call non-fair play real life. So I warned my 15U teams going into nationals, be ready for real life, because if your coach wants to try and win a few extra matches that they maybe couldn't in the year, right, you're going to realize what your season is going to be like next year. What I really dislike about fair play is it has reduced the number of people that are getting opportunities to make teams, because I know there's teams at the 13 and 14U level that are only picking 9 players to ensure their top 3 players never leave the court.
Right. Yeah.
So that is down the number of kids in the sport. I also have seen firsthand coaches that remove a player as soon as 15 points happens, regardless of who gets to 15 first, whether it's 15-1 for his team or the other team. And how is a player ever supposed to know what it feels like to lose, what it feels like to have pressure put on their shoulders, what it feels like, more importantly, to have success at that? Maybe you're down 15-10 and you mount a comeback and win 26-24, and some of those people, that might be the high point of their volleyball careers. So unfortunately, I don't think the coaches are using it. Again, there are plenty who have the same view as me of let's grow the sport and let's not worry about winning at 13U and 14U and stacking our teams and making sure our best players never leave the court. But it is also creating a sense of entitlement of whether I go to practice or not, I know I get to play almost half of a tournament.
Fair enough. And now, do you believe that's... Sorry, go ahead.
And the only way a coach can sort of have a little bit of control on that is both communication with the families, and anytime you get to a third set, those athletes are generally not being punished because they haven't been to practice, but they haven't developed to the same level because they're missing practices. So they get their one set, and then they get taken out, and that's where a lot of conflict happens when the parents see the same 6 athletes always playing a third set. Like you said, it's not equal play, it's fair play. You get an opportunity, but you have to make the most of that opportunity.
Fair enough, Bruce. Your volume has kind of disintegrated there. There we go. Something happened there. Can you hear me?
Finger on the mic.
Fair enough. Dave Carrasco, he runs Academy Volleyball Club in White Rock. He has a question here. It says, what's your take on U.S. versus Canadian club sub rules? U.S. has 12 unlimited. Canada has 6 limited.
Considering I was coaching 18U this year and I used 7 of the 12 unlimited I thought I had and then had a bunch of points taken off, I am all for 12 unlimited. I think it's dinosaur days if we're trying to grow the sport of limiting that 1 in, 1 out. There's kids that are not going to be able to perform certain skills at a certain age. Whereas if you don't have the flexibility to at least take some of the extreme pressure off them to either perform a serve or serve receive or whatever it is, we want to get as many people in and have some flexibility, I think is great. But again, there's coaches who never let a kid serve. That's when I think the 12 unlimited has an issue.
Right. Yeah, I think that's I'm totally for the 12 unlimited. I can't agree more. So shout out to Dave. I know he runs a great volleyball club there in the White Rock area with Academy, and they've done very well. So thanks for joining us, Dave. Back to the Canadian rule of fair play. Again, do you feel this should be Canada-wide? Because again, Alberta has one rule, BC has one rule, and then Ontario has other rules, and then you go to nationals and everyone's again on that same rule. Should this be a national-wide rule where all, let's say at U13, obviously everything's triple ball, fair play would be a reasonable age group to do it at, but again, some provinces at U15 don't do it, some do.
I like to speak for the smaller clubs, the smaller cities, and they may not have any aspirations of going to nationals, so they don't care what the nationals rules are. And there's probably a majority of teams in Alberta, probably more than half, that aren't going to a nationals that are outside of Alberta. So right. I would love to have the same rules everywhere, because my coaches were also unsure how to even coach at nationals because of that. So that caused some stress. They found out some things about themselves, about how bad they actually want to win. When you don't have a choice to sub, you can just sit back and watch. But when you have that opportunity to impact game, you can start hurting some feelings, and you have to live through that to manipulate it a little bit. The other one I was going to comment on earlier was 14U. I don't think needs a triple ball tournament anymore, because more and more athletes are playing their full 13U year to learn triple ball, learn the sport, and by 14U they're ready to play. So I digress on that one. I would love equal rules for everybody and have Volleyball Canada, but also have the PTAs, the provincial associations, say, we understand this is for the common good, let's try it and see where we go. And it's going to take 5 years of accepting that Volleyball Canada knows what each province needs.
Right. No, fair.
Which is going to be a tough sell, I think.
Fair enough. Now, as a club director myself, obviously, I think the most issues that I have regarding disgruntled parents is that U15, as you spoke about, going from fair play into nationals, and then not having that fair play rule. So I think you touched on it in your answer from the last question. If they're good to do no triple ball at U14, do you think fair play should happen at U15?
I do.
Okay.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed 14 and 15-year-old athletes when the coaches are going after that single gold medal in Division I when they have no hope of it. So right. I think it's the best way to protect the athletes. And again, if Alberta athletes aren't ready to play, let's say, normal volleyball at nationals, I think they'll get over that aspect pretty quick.
Now, what skill do you think coaches overlook the most?
Footwork.
Fully agree on that too. Right on. And now, is that something that coaches should just expect, and that's why it's overlooked, or is it something that maybe Volleyball Canada or provincial associations don't push enough? Where's the miscommunication, and where can we fix it?
I'm not sure if it's a miscommunication. I think there's limited practice time, and why on earth would we spend half an hour every practice without touching a ball? And they just hope that footwork will come along as they perform drills that have movement in them, but I don't think the movement is learned or efficient. So it's tricky that if my coaches get to practice 6 hours a week and I say you're going to spend 90 minutes of that 6, which is what, 25%, they're going to say we don't have enough time to work on our skills, so let's just hope it comes along. So
okay. Now, obviously, as this sport grows, we have more coaches coming into the system. A lot of them are younger coaches. Well, what words of advice would you give, let's say a 21, 22, 23-year-old getting into coaching, in club or school?
Don't romanticize how hard you worked as a player. Don't coach purely how you think you were coached, because you had your individual goggles on and likely didn't see all the different things the coach was doing. Right. So when I see a player come in early and they seem to run practice or run lines every practice, they might have run lines a couple times, but they hated them so much they think, oh, that meant I was working hard, so I'm going to make my own team work really hard by running lines. So it's more stepping back, and don't think you know everything about the sport because you played for a couple years. It's more listen, sit back, and try to figure out what the athletes are looking for and what the athletes want, not what you want to project on the group.
Fair enough. There was a question here from Lisa. It says, as a new coach, U13 coming into club, what do you think is the best way to learn from others to be able to move up and learn the sport the best you can to better your athletes? So I'm taking it. Lisa's would be going into her second year coaching, obviously is a sponge right now, trying to get a lot of insight on making her athletes stronger. Anything that jumps out at you on that one?
I'd say number one, be sure at the start of the year that at the end of the year, all of your athletes want to keep playing the sport. If you make it too tough on them or too serious on them, it's not going to be the best learning environment. So make them love the sport. As far as best networking capabilities, I think coaches are pretty open to communication, as you've set up here, of just ask a university coach, can I come watch a practice? Ask a college coach, can I come watch a practice? The symposiums that Volleyball Alberta and the other provinces, I'm sure, put on, just keep networking, keep communicating, talk to other coaches at tournaments. Just be open and receptive and not sort of in your own silo thinking you know what you want to do. And clearly she is definitely open to that communication.
Graham, national team player, is live with us right now, and he has a great question. A shout out to Graham. He's running a clinic for Kids Sport Calgary on August 11th. All the proceeds are going to Kids Sport Calgary. So good on you, Graham, for running that. I'm excited to see how that all works out, and hope you get as many people out as possible regarding that. So he has a question here. What do you think of clubs making kids sign contracts at the club level?
I'm old school, so I think it's a joke. Okay. The reason, like, I have a couple teams at the higher levels that I wouldn't say sign contracts. We do some verbal commitments because I've found athletes in high school actually want to set up their winter with school jobs and girlfriends, boyfriends, diplomas. They actually want to know what they're doing 6 months ahead. They don't want to go to my tryout in December. But I also am looking for athletes that have a little bit of grit. And I'm old school. I went through tryouts. I never had a coach coming to me begging me to tell me all the great things they could offer me if I just went and played for them, until I was being recruited for university. But when we're doing this to 12-year-old boys and girls promising great things at the club level, you're losing control and you're losing perspective about what it's all about. And like I said, I'm looking for players who are willing to risk going to a tryout who have a desire to be in my club. So I'm already fielding emails. When are your open gyms? How do you sign players? And they get pretty disappointed when I say, well, I have my tryouts and you may not have a team at the end of the tryouts. So that's a risk that they take coming to my tryouts, and it's a family thing. They have to realize what's more important. They might have a lesser coach somewhere else, but they want to make sure they're on a court. So I'm not a big fan of signing and promising until at least high school, where they're just trying to sort their lives out. 14-year-olds usually don't have a ton going on. Yeah, the hockey team or whatever, but they also don't know when those teams are practicing. So take a risk.
For sure, and I think we can go deeper with that too. Is I actually think parents get more involved where they're trying to sell their kid to clubs, and want that, piece of paper that assures them a spot because, I don't know, they might think their kid's the next national team player. Who knows what their thought process is, but I think there is a lot of push on the parent side regarding this whole signing contracts thing. It's not necessarily the kid, every thought on it, right?
It's a currency.
Yeah.
And it's the same as parents in hockey who get to say, oh, my son is playing Bantam 1. My daughter is playing Bantam 1 or Pee Wee 1. That's a currency of status. And being able to say, oh, my daughter has 4 different club offers, and where are we going to go? Oh, woe is me. This decision is so hard. Not understanding there's plenty of kids who don't have any offers. And when parents are coming to me saying, my daughter has 3 or 4 offers, or her friends are getting all these offers, I say, don't believe everything you hear, because everybody wants to feel wanted.
Right, for sure.
But it definitely is, more often than not, I would agree, parent-driven.
Parent-driven, yeah, for sure. And again, I can talk about this for hours, and we'll try to move on here regarding this one. So, Graham, good question. I truly believe that people think, or parents do believe that their kids are I want to play for a Div 1 team, and how the club world is set up. One bad game could cost you Div 1, and you're in Div 3 for the remainder of the season. So, I don't know how any club can sit there and go and promise a parent your daughter is going to be on a Div 1 team. I personally don't promise that. I know you don't promise that, but I know there are people out there that do promise that. But again, when you say it's parent driven, I do believe that there are parents going, my daughter or son has to be on a Div 1 team. And I don't know how anyone in their right mind can truly promise that with how the system.
Those parents are also going to be the ones who get really upset when their son or daughter may not be Div 1 caliber, but their team is in Div 1, and they're the ones getting subbed out of 15 because that's not the best development level for them to move along. They might be late bloomers and could really stand to be successful in Div 2, but they want no part of that. So I totally agree.
That's a drop mic moment on that one. So, as we've seen, the sport has grown. Do you think it's sustainable?
I don't see why not. If facilities continue to be accessible, I don't see why not. I think a lot of people are doing great things in volleyball. I think we have a good reputation as a sport that kids can enjoy, be safe, and carry on, and I see no stopping.
Right on. So what can we do as a community to sustain or even grow it?
Well, what I'm trying to do is have open tryouts to make sure everyone has an opportunity, that whether you go to a school that is not recruited or not watched or doesn't go to extra tournaments where those athletes can be recruited. I call it musical chairs, that with parents coming into the sport, they'll all of a sudden their kid plays school volleyball in grade 8. It's October and they're looking around for a club team. And if a bunch of club teams have already made their full teams and there's no opportunity for them to enter the club, we're losing them right there. So just maintaining an openness to how to get involved in a club team, I think keeps the game going.
Bruce Edwards, since moving here to Alberta, and getting to know you. You have been obviously a true inspiration to myself and a role model in everything that you do. Your place in the Hall of Fame is well deserved. Keep being an inspiration to athletes and your coaches and all coaches in the Alberta, volleyball world. I really appreciate you taking the time with all the construction that is going on at Rally Point, and thanks for taking the time to answer all these questions.
Absolutely. That was fun, Dave. Thanks. See everybody on the courts.
Sounds good. See you later, Bruce.